Hi everyone, welcome back to UiPath tutorials. In today's video, we will going to see how we can create a continuous bot. Now let's understand the use case. Now, first the bot have to read a file from a specific folder and then upload it into the application. And in the end, it have to move that particular file to another folder, or we can say to the processed folder. In this particular use case, there is no specific time that business will going to place a file into the folder. They can put in every 10 minutes or in every 1 hour or every 2 hours. So the business want that the bot should continuously check if there is any new file placed in the folder, it start processing it. So for that there are different ways to do it, but today I'm going to show it how we can create this particular use case of continuous bot. Now let's move to the RE framework template. Now for you, the RE framework template will look like this. Okay, so what you have to do, the first thing you have to basically point this no data to init state. I'll tell you why. Just point out this for now. Okay, the another thing that you have to do is in the variables, if you see in the variables, what you have to change is you have to change the queue item to the string here. You see in the transaction item, for you it's a queue item, so change it to the string. And for transaction data, it might be a data table for you, just change it to the array of string. Okay, these two things you have to change, rest will remain same. Once you change this transaction item to the string, there are a lot of errors you might see. So the first, you will going to see an error here in the get transaction data. In get transaction data, you have to basically change the queue item to the string. So if I've opened it, get transaction data, you see this should be string here, and same need to be passed in the import arguments. Okay, transaction item string. And you might see error in the process also. So if I click import argument, so this also should be string instead of queue item. Okay, now let's move further. You might see an error here also in set transaction status, so please change the transaction item to string instead of queue item. That also you need to do. Okay, wherever there are queue activities, you can remove those or comment out. You might see an error in the exception also here, because we are using a set transaction status here also, and in process also we are using a set transaction status. So first do that thing, and when there is no error in your framework, then we are good to go. So you can run the validate project. You can do this one just to see if there is any error. If there is any error, you can navigate to and just you can fix that. So these are the things you have to do. These are the pre-setup things. Now another thing is why I have pointed this no data here. I'll tell you, because let's assume there is one folder here, like input folder, where we have two files. So in init state, I'm going to read these two files and going to store into the array. Now in the array I have two counts, so that means the iteration will be happen twice, for first file, for second file, and for third file. When it comes to check, it will not find and it will go here into the initialization state, so that the bot start checking again, is there any new file in the folder. Now these files we are moving in the end in the process. Basically in the process here we are moving this file to another folder, so that means every time it will be empty. So the bot will keep looking, is there any file. If the business plays a new file to this folder here, then in that case it will again pick the files, put it into the array, and then start iterating each file one by one. Now if we pointed out this to end process, then there is no file present into the folder, that means it will end the process. But we want the process should not end, it should come to the idle state, and if any files comes into the folder, it start processing it. I hope this is clear. Now let's go to the initialization part. In the initialization part, what you have to do is You have to create one workflow, get files from folder. In this workflow, you have to create certain arguments, str array all files, direction is out, repeat duration delay, bot end time, input folder. Now I'll tell you where I'm utilizing this. So this input folder is the same that I've shown you. This is the input folder where we have these two files. Okay, out str array all files. Basically, this is in this we are going to store the all the file paths. Repeat duration delay. I'll show you where I am utilizing this. Bot end time is something, let's assume later on business say okay we want bot to stop at 11 p.m. after that it should not work. So in that case this particular variable will be helpful. Okay, now if you see I have already passed everything from the config file. So input folder, delay file check, and this should also go into the asset. These both things will go into the asset. For now I have placed it as a hard-coded value, but don't make it hard-coded. Just put this value into the asset. Same for this one also. Delay file check. Now if I show you the config file, delay file check I have given as a 5 second for now. Okay, you can put this into the asset also, so that later on you can increase or decrease this. This is the input and output folder path for me. Okay, now here you see when I'm from the config file, when I'm passing this delay file check. Now also just remember it, you just put a single quote here and then put a value. Okay, so that it will be treated as a string. So when this value the bot will pick it, we have to convert this to the time spent. So for that you have to write time spent dot parse. Okay, this one is a string value, so you can put it into the asset directly. Just ignore this one for now. Okay, now let's go to our workflow. The first thing that you have to do is in str bot end time. So you see this str bot end time, here we have to pass, here we will going to have a time. Basically when we want to stop a bot for the current date. So for that what I have done, so this is the same time in str bot end time is a variable, string variable, where we will getting a time, right? Let's say I want to stop a bot at 12:30, so in that 12:30 will come here. So and you see date time dot now dot to, I'm appending this so that I will have the date and time into this particular variable str bot end time. So this will have a date and time both. Okay, in that way we will have date and time we want to stop a bot. Now date I have not specified in the asset. Why? Because I always want to stop a bot today only. If specifically if you want to stop a bot on particular date, then every time you need to change an asset. But let's assume today's bot is running in the morning and in the evening I want to stop, so that means the date will remain same, right? So that's why I'm appending this date time dot now dot to string with this str bot end time. So now we have here the date time that we want to stop a bot. Hope this is clear. Now do while loop. In do while loop what you have to do is in this assign activity you have to read the files and put it into the array. Now to read a file you have to write down directory.get files and in str input folder. This is the variable where we have all the files present. This is the input folder we have. This is the one, this one. Okay, now once we have all the files into this array, I am going to check okay the count equals to 0. If the count equals to 0, it will wait for some time, like 5 second delay I have given. You can give 30 second or 1 minute 20 seconds or 2 minute or 5 minute, whatever you want, so that it will wait for 5 seconds and then it will start checking again in the loop, because the count equals to 0. Whenever the count equals to 0, it will continue in the loop and start checking okay in that particular directory is there any file. If there is a file, then it will come into the else condition and come out from the loop. But in the if and what this is doing basically, this is something, it is comparing, okay, when date time dot now is greater than bot end time. Now if the bot end time, let's assume, is 12:30 and date time dot now is more than that, or 12:30, then it will going to stop the bot. It will throw an exception and will stop the bot in that case. Okay, these are some of the log messages to print if there are file count or not. Now when let's assume, let's see the positive scenario that okay, there are two files. For now there are some files in the input folder, like there are for now two files. So if there is files present into the folder, then this particular array will have some values, right? So it will going to have a 2 count in that case, because in our input folder we have two files here, so that means the count will be 2. Then bot will go to the get transaction data here. Okay. It will start iterating. Now in get transaction data, first it will pick the first file, this one. For that, what you have to do, in get transaction data, you remove everything and keep this if condition only. Okay, these are some of the argument. You can see it, the directions and the type. It should be similar for you. The transaction item shouldn't be a queue item but a string here. Okay, same for transaction data. It's an array of string, not a data table. Now the condition is that okay, array count is greater than the transaction number, then it should start processing this. Now you see in transaction number minus 1 I have done here. In transaction number minus 1. Why? Because in main, if you go to the variable, the transaction number is 1 here, but our array starts with a 0, so that's why I am doing transaction number minus 1, so that at least so that always it is start from the 0. Whatever value the transaction number will have, it always minus 1 to it. But if you don't want to do minus 1, you can put a 0 here also. Okay, so that you, in that case, you're not required to do this step, it's transaction number minus 1, but you can directly pass the transaction number. But let it be like this, because when we see the logs, it always say okay, it is processing for first transaction, which looks better than it is saying that okay, that it is processing for 0 transaction. Okay, now this is the predefined uh, value, we can say. So I have not changed anything here. Now dot to string I am putting into the out transaction ID. Now this is transaction item is something which I have changed here. Now I am just getting the element on 0 index in that particular array. So on 0 index, that will be the first file, this one, and on second index, like on 1 index, the file will be this. In that way we will have a transaction item. So let's assume if the count is 2 and if this condition is false, if it is not, means if it is not matched, the transaction number get increased by the count in the array. So in that case it will come to the else and it will put a nothing in a transaction item. Nothing means, if you see in the nothing means we don't have anything in a transaction item, that means it will go directly to the init state again and start looking for the files. Now let's see, there are two count in the array. For the first one, it retrieve the file path on the 0 index and go to the process transaction. Now in the process transaction, I have passed the transaction item which is carrying a file path here, and here in the process I'm just printing a file path, and this is something which will going to upload a file to the specific application. Now you can put your logic or the steps of those app cut. Now here you can put your workflow where you want to upload a file on SharePoint or on any specific application. So for now this is empty. Okay, now in the end, when the file is uploaded to some application, then we have to move this particular file to another folder. For that I have used a move file activity. This is the file path which is coming in transaction item, and this is the destination folder. Destination folder is coming from the config file. The destination folder is output for me. Let me show the arguments also. This is the transaction item which is carrying the file path, and this is the output folder where the bot need to move that file. Now I hope this is clear. Now what I will do, just to see how the bot is running, I will place some breakpoint. I put the first breakpoint here. I'll put the second. It is already there. Let me check if it is here. Okay. Now I have put some breakpoints. Okay. Let me remove these ones. So I have put the breakpoint on get files from folder, then get transaction, and then process. Now let's see how the bot will run. Before that, let me check this value. So it's 2037, right? So let me change it to 00 15. Let me run the bot for now. I'll debug it. The Now first it will come here and check if there is any file or not. It throws an exception because the time exceeds here. What I will do, let me change the time to 13:00. So it will stop at 1 p.m. for now. Right now it's 12:13, right? So that means the bot should run now. First it will come here. It will look for the file and it founds the file, two file it found. Then it come to the get transaction data. Then it will go to the process here and print the file path and then moving that particular file to another folder. So let's see in the input. So there was that file is moved to the output. You see this one. Now again, let's run it again. It will again go to the come to the get transaction item. You see it paused there, coming back to the process, and then again it will move that particular file. There's two file to another folder. You see the logs. Now that file is also moved from input. Now input folder is empty. Now you see in the it again come to the get transaction data to see if there is some more transaction, but when I click on the continue, it will go back to the get files from folder. Now get files folder, you see it is in initialization state. Now the bot will keep looking. It will come to the idle state. Now it will keep looking for the file. You can put a log message here also just to see if it is checking or not. So I have just put one log message only there. So it is printing get files from folder workflow started. Only this log message it is printing. But right now it is in the loop and continuously checking if there is any file or not. So just to see it will come out or not. What I'll do, I'll create another file here. Okay. Now let's see it will come out or not. Okay. Now you see it come out. The get transaction data, it comes to the get transaction data showing okay there are one file there. It will go to the process. Okay, it will come to the process and move that file. Let's see. Okay, something is wrong. Now what is happening here, you see when I started a bot, it moved the files to another folder, but when I put another file, it is not basically, it is coming to the transaction data, but it is directly coming to the init state every time. Why? Because you see the transaction number is increasing every time, so that transaction number should always be put to 1, means we have to assign a value to 1 every time when it is come to the init state. So we have to reinitialize this transaction number. Now for that, what you have to do is you can put assign activity here, and what is the transaction number? Transaction number should always be 1, like this. In this case, what will happen when when it perform all the task, it move all the files to the folder, it come to the initial state and make the transaction number to 1. Now how it will work, you see, for now there is one file, right? So I'll run the bot for now. Let me debug it. Okay, now I'll continue this. It is coming to the get transaction data. It will move to the process and then come to the get transaction data again. Now there is no data, so it will come to init state in the get files from folder and start looking out for the files. Now there is no files present, so it will keep looking out. Okay, is there any file or not? It will keep looking. Now what I will do, I'll create one file here. When it finds the file, it will come to the get transaction data again. Now it is going to the process and then move that particular file, and then on get transaction data it will again come to the get transaction data, and then it will go to the init state, because again it have to look out for the files, right? So you see, now it will keep looking for the file. Is there any new file? So in this way it will continue the process. It will continue the process till 1 p.m. that time, because that is the deadline we have given for this process. It should stop at that time. This is how the bot will work. So I can pass the time also if you want. Let's assume if I want to pass a time as a 12. If you want to pass, let me pass some time here. So 12. What is there? 22 right now, right? I will put as 23. Let me run the bot. The end time I have put as 12:23. Now you see the error, it is showing that okay, now the time is 12:23, so the bot has stopped it. It will not going to run now. So this is how you can create a continuous bot, and this is very helpful when you want to do it in unattended mode. Thanks everyone for watching my video. Have a great day. If you have any issues or any confusion, you can comment on my video. I will help you out there. Thank you.